Okay, it's another quick video for myself, Harvey Goldman. No cuts, no edits, no filters, and no hair. And today I am in the middle of another glorious industrial estate somewhere in Devon. So today's video, the real price of having kids in the UK in 2025. Now, if you're thinking of starting a family, here's what they don't tell you. And to be fair, it's pretty brutal. What I'm going to give you is basically a breakdown of some of the financial implications of having children in the current UK economic climate. Now, I had mine some time ago now. They still tap me up for cash. Don't get that twisted. I may consider them young adults, but they definitely know how to hold their hand out. And that's not anything that's going to change anytime soon for the next gen of kids that are coming along. So let's get into it. So the first thing, of course, if you're planning on having kids, is childcare expenses. Basically the super high cost of daycare and things like after school programs and even breakfast clubs, if they're not subsidized, can put a massive strain on family budgets. In fact, I do know several friends of mine, both parents are working in their household. They've got a child, or two, in fact, in one case, and the childcare for 1 month for that child, so that both parents can go out and work, is £1,500 a month. Get your head around that. And when you consider that where we live in Devon, the wages aren't especially high compared to the rest of the UK, or compared to a lot of the UK. Their income, I believe, is around 28,000 for him, and I think for her it's around 30, so just under the median UK income. But yeah, £1,500 a month on childcare. Scary. And also necessary. Imagine if you didn't have access or couldn't afford to do childcare. You'd go out of your mind, wouldn't you? Being sat at home, basically watching Play School and doing potato painting and all the rest of it. It's madness. And you'd be doing that for years and years and years. So I think it's necessary. I think people need that break from their kids. I know obviously there is a school of thought that, well, if you can't look after them or don't want to look after them, don't have them. But you should be able to have your cake and eat it. I do believe that just because you have kids, it shouldn't mean that you're handicapped in terms of looking for work. You should be able to find a balance between both. But childcare is mental expensive. Education costs. Now, these are something that people often don't really factor into it because it's not an immediate issue. It's something that only kicks in around 5 or 6 years old, and it gets a lot worse by the time they hit 10 or 11. But the expenses for things like school uniforms, supplies, extracurricular activities, they all add up over time. When I think back to my own childhood, my parents, working class family, I used to go to a judo club after school 1 day a week. And then because I think I was probably a bit of a handful as a kid, my parents obviously needed a bit of a break from me. My nan actually paid for me to do some additional clubs. So she would pay for me to go out and do, of all things, sword fencing. So I did sword fencing as a child, 1 day a week, which was a bit bougie as a thing to do as a child in the 80s in Devon. You wouldn't think there were many sword fencers in the area. But there you go. So I did sword fencing, did Thai boxing, anything that involved violence, basically, to get it out of my system. I think that was the idea. But yeah, my nan subsidised that, and thank God that she did. But all of these are costs that you perhaps don't consider. And when I think what my own kids cost me in school shoes and school uniforms and constant stationery, just all the time, every week, buying the stationery, it was madness. It was literally an arm and a leg every month. Housing needs is massive. You know, if you have kids, you can't expect to have a small space. It's a bit like having a dog, I guess. You need a space for them to run around and to grow and to, you know, to be kids. So generally, if you have kids, you're going to be looking at upgrading your living space. to accommodate families, and this obviously comes with higher rents, higher mortgages, and in turn, because you've got a bigger property, that comes with higher bills monthly, higher food costs and stuff like that. It all has a domino effect. Everything costs more. Holidays, for example, you don't think about that. Now, when you go on holiday, it's not just you and your missus, it's you and your missus and a toddler. And although they might fly for free, trust me, the hotels overseas will certainly charge you for a bigger room. They'll charge you for extra food on the table and everything else. So all those costs proportionately go up. Healthcare and nutrition is obviously massive. So ensuring that you've got proper and adequate medical care, and especially important nowadays when the NHS is absolutely on its arse, and your child ideally needs a healthy diet. And for children, this involves massive ongoing costs. I know as a child, I was really picky with what I ate. And for quite a while, all I would eat was kind of brown rice. So it's amazing that I made it to 19 stone and 6'4". I don't know how that happened. They must have had growth hormones in the milk back then. But I know that my diet was constantly changing, and there were quite a lot of foods that I just wouldn't eat, and that meant my parents had to go out and basically pander to my needs as an awkward child, and that obviously cost them money. I'm a lot more tolerant now. Now I eat absolutely everything apart from liver and kidneys. That's about it. But this is an ongoing cost, obviously. You do need to give your kids proper nourishment. You can't just feed them chicken nuggets and crap. You can't just feed them beans on toast. They need variety. And you need to cultivate those little taste buds young. And it all costs money. And the final one, I guess, is opportunity. And this is something, again, that people only consider in the short term. They think, oh, we're going to have a baby. We can't go on holiday this year. Got news for you. Yeah, it might be longer than you think before you can go away. I mean, besides anything else, you've got the potential income loss that you've got due to things like parental leave, or perhaps you need to reduce your working hours. It might be that you're a single parent bringing up a kid. I mean, how about that? So yes, you might get the odd subsidy from the government. You might get a credit here. You might get a payment there. It's not going to be a lot. It's definitely not going to be enough. And then, of course, you've got the conundrum that as a single parent, can you go out and work? Or are you literally tied to childcare because you can't afford the childcare costs that you would need to pay to then go out and find some work to be able to afford the childcare costs? So it's an absolute minefield. And then, of course, you've got a Brucey bonus. You've got the other things, which are birthdays, Christmases, and all the other things like Easter. And I know that for a time, especially when my kids were young, there were no limits, and I mean literally no limits on what I would spend on them for birthdays and Christmas. And as I got older and wiser, hopefully, and they got a little bit older, it started to be a case of, right, this is now the limit for your birthday. And I think at one point I set a limit of £50 for a birthday gift, and I think it was £120 or something like that for a Christmas gift. And there was no leeway there. That was it. That was all they got. And obviously, I was of the opinion that they've got grandparents. Grandparents buy them stuff, if anything, to make up for the stuff they never bought me. And I was fine with that. So you have to set limits, and you have to think about all of these knock-on effects that all of these costs have. Should you have kids? It's a big decision. Many people go into it blindly. Many people simply go into it by accident, and that's the reality of it. Many children are absolutely unplanned. But what are your thoughts on this? How are you a parent? Has this affected you? Are you thinking of having a kid? Have you considered any of these things? If not, for God's sake, please do. But there you go. Anyway, drop it in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. So YouTube's going to put another video there somewhere. Maybe check it out. Maybe don't. Like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz. And there'll be another video tomorrow. Goldman. Peace out.